Happy New Year's, everyone. I hope everyone had a good holiday and a good Christmas. Looking back at 2024, this is my top five best games of 2024, in my opinion. Of course, people are going to have different opinions, and with how good 2024 was with games, there's most definitely going to be notable omissions. Feel free to leave a comment on what games you would put on the list and what games you would take out of the list. I would love to hear from you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number five is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Now, while many people will disagree with this, as some people didn't jive with the gameplay of Indiana Jones, personally, I did. I enjoyed the stealth melee combat. I felt it was a reflection of the character Indiana Jones, and I also loved the world that they created. The game fits seamlessly with the trilogy, and it just fits in so nicely with the narrative. The performance, the writing, Troy Baker was absolutely fantastic. The immersion, everything about the game made me feel like I was Indiana Jones, right in the middle and the heart of the trilogy. And the game delivered on that front. I grew up watching Indiana Jones, and I had an absolute blast. However, the game itself is not better than the top four games on this list, and this is the main reason why it comes in at number five. Moving on, we got the number four game on this list, and that is Marvel Rivals. Now, this should not surprise anyone, as I am an Overwatch fan. I've played Overwatch since 2016, and I'm also a fan of Marvel Comics. I grew up reading the comics, I grew up watching the cartoons and stuff. So, mixing Marvel with Overwatch was a perfect fit for somebody like me, and I absolutely love Marvel Rivals. I think Marvel Rivals is a better game than Overwatch, and in my opinion, Overwatch has seemingly lost its direction, and the game, to me, while it's a good competitive experience for those who can get into it, it lost the fun. Combine the fact that Blizzard currently focuses more on microtransactions and making money than they do making their game fun. Marvel Rivals has taken over the hero shooter spot for me, and not surprisingly, I absolutely love the game. I still actively play it, and it is my go-to hero shooter, and it is the main reason why it is number four on my list. Coming in at number three is Astrobot. Now, I know a lot of people weren't happy with Astrobot winning the Game of the Year at the Game Awards, but quite frankly, it doesn't matter whether or not you think the game is of your taste. The quality is there. The game looked good, played good. It was absolutely fun. It ran perfectly, no bugs, no glitches, no greedy microtransactions. I mean, it was as close to a perfect game as you're going to get in 2024. The reason why Astrobot is number three on my list and not any higher, because like many other people, my tastes are on the more mature side of things, and because it is on the more mature side of things, personally speaking, I could not put it higher on the list because the top two games just simply fit my taste buds more than what Astrobot did. But I do not deny the quality of Astrobot, and I recommend it to anyone as it is an absolute fantastic game, which is why it comes in at number three on my list. Coming in at number two, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy. I am a big fan specifically of Final Fantasy VII. I played the OG, and I absolutely loved Rebirth. But the reason why Rebirth is number two and not number one is mainly because the game is filled with a lot of bloat, which is off-putting for a lot of players. And also, Chapter 13 is a slog to play. To put things into context, if I was to replay the game, I would skip Chapter 13, mainly because of how boring that chapter is. So overall, while I did love Final Fantasy Rebirth, and it was pegged as my game of the year for the brunt of 2024, once I played the number one title, this game moved to number two because as much as I love the game myself personally, the problems are just too much to ignore to put it in the number one spot over the number one game. Before I move on to number one and my game of the year, I like to have two honorable mentions in this year's list. The honorable mentions belong to Hades 2 and Supervive. Both games are early access. Hades 2 is a paid early access title, while Supervive is a free-to-play early access title. These two games are fantastic in the current state that they're in. As a matter of fact, Hades 2 specifically would have been my game of the year had it been officially released. But because it's in early access, it does not qualify. Supervive would have definitely made this list as well, but much like Hades 2, it is in early access and it is not finished. This is a completely fresh multiplayer experience and I have a blast playing it. I actively play it to this day and I highly recommend it to anyone. Both games are set to release in 2025, so look to see them on my list next year unless they get beat out by other titles. But as it stands right now, these are my two honorable mentions in 2024. Coming in at number one, the number one title, the best game of 2024, my personal game of the year, is none other than Metaphor ReFantazio. Metaphor ReFantazio was a game that came out of the blue for me personally. I've never played Persona prior to playing those games, and I had no hype or anticipation for it, but the rave reviews made me want to check it out, and I'm glad I did, because this game is a very, very good game. It takes a very special game for me to log 92 hours into it from a single player experience standpoint, and this game delivered on all fronts. It looked good, it played good, fantastic writing, fantastic characters. It keeps you on your toes all the way through, narratively speaking, and it was just an amazing adventure to play through. It's not perfect. As I mentioned in my review, the biggest gripe I had with the game was the fact that if you only have one save file, you could hard lock yourself out of the game at the final boss because there is a notable difficulty spike. But most players who play RPGs probably understand by now to always carry multiple saves. So I imagine for most players, this is not an issue. However, it is worth mentioning nonetheless. But it doesn't deter the fact that this was a fantastic experience. And once I finished Metaphor, I was just in awe with how good the game was, how good the experience was. And I recommend Metaphor ReFantazio to any RPG fan. If you're a fan of RPGs, you definitely have to play Metaphor ReFantazio. It is a fantastic experience through and through. So that's my list of the best games of 2024, with Metaphor being my game of the year. I would like to hear what your lists are, if what games you would put in, what games you would take out. Of course, there's going to be divisive when it comes to this because people might feel, well, Stellar Blade should be in here, Space Marine, Wukong. Again, a lot of great games in 2024, so we all have difference of opinions. I'd love to hear from you and what your opinions are regarding your best games of 2024. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.